Hello, how we doing, lovely people? Good morning. Welcome to another YouTube video. Bit of a different one today. I'm actually sitting at work on my break, and I thought I'd get some recording done. But instead of watching the gameplay and talking about something in my mind, I actually got out some graphs, which I'll put them on the screen during the video to sort of talk about, break them down, that sort of stuff. But the topic for today is how to find that thing that you want to do in life, or if you have found it, how to stick to it. And this one will be talking a bit more about emotions because they dictate how we feel, how we think, what we do, and that sort of stuff. And I just want to point out initially that all emotions are valid. Even anger, sadness, happiness, jealousy, all, whether you describe them as positive or negative, they actually are all, it's all you, right? At the end of the day, emotions are messages from yourself. So to deny half the amount of messages to yourself is only listening to half of yourself, if that makes sense. How you react to the emotions are a different story, and that's what we're going to get into right now. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the flow state. Now, I know that word gets chucked about here and there. Essentially, is where challenge requirement and the skill set you have, where they align. So say if you're doing something and the challenge is very high and your skill set in whatever you're doing is very low, you're probably going to feel very anxious, kind of worried and that sort of stuff. And likewise, if your skill set in something is incredibly high, but the challenge, the bar that you have to achieve is incredibly low, you're going to be really bored and unmotivated. It's not really going to push you. Now, let's say you have a medium skill set in something and the bar isn't set too high or too low. You will probably get into it and start hitting your stride a lot easier than if it was the other two things I've mentioned. And that's because you're sort of in a flow state. And this also exists, for example, if the challenge is very high, but the skill set is very high. And also if the skill set is low, but the challenge is low. Examples of being in the flow state at a very, very high level would be like professional athletes, right? Their challenge is incredibly high. They are competing either nationally or internationally, to win against other people who are in the exact same boat. So the challenge set is really high, but their skill set is also really high. You wouldn't become a professional athlete without having put the work in, the blood, sweat, and tears, learned things in strength, all of that good stuff. When they compete, they're in the sort of flow state because their skill set and the challenge required sort of match or they align. And the same goes for things that are almost like kind of dumb and fun. For example, a little bit like this, right? Like this channel might be a good example how the challenge is relatively low, right? I'm mostly what's speaking on my mind and sharing out some good vibes and trying to teach what's on my brain to other people so they can use it and progress and achieve what they need to in their lives, right? But my skill set is also really low. My first time making YouTube channels, learning how to edit as well, all that good stuff. So I also get in a bit of a flow state with these things because the challenge and the skill set, they align. A couple of scenarios where this is not the case, for example, is if you've got like an exam coming up. Say if you've got, I don't know, I'm going to go back to maths again. So you've got a maths exam coming up and you're already not very good at maths and you don't put the work in to learn stuff, or you miss classes, or you haven't done your homework, or whatever. The challenge is very high, but the skill set is very low. So you're going to be worried about the outcome. And as a result, it's going to affect how well you perform in it. Okay, now we can take hospitality for the other instance, or like waiting tables. Let's say you're actually incredibly good at waiting tables. You've done silver service for like 10 years or whatever, and then you go work in like a diner somewhere. You're probably going to be bored half the time because your skill set is incredibly high, but there's no need to use any of the skill set. So your brain isn't really getting stimulated the way you want it to. That fundamentally is like your flow state. To clarify, in your flow state, that's where it's really easy to avoid distractions. It's really easy to focus. It can also be sort of like being very playful, being very creative. Like you don't feel the weight of what you're doing, and yet you're actually achieving quite a lot of things. So I think it's kind of cool to see it like that. Now, a bit more of a complex version of that graph is one here, which actually breaks down where your emotions might fall within this whole chart. For example, if your skill set is in perspective is quite high, and the challenge is medium, it's not crazy, but it's not too low, you're probably going to feel very, very in control. Driving a car might be a good example. If you've been driving for a while, the rules of the road don't really change. People don't really change. Everyone follows the lanes. Everyone stops at red lights, whatever. So you feel very in control in that car, right? You know how your car reacts. You know how long it is. You know when to change gears, all that good stuff. So your skill set is high in that regards. but the challenge is medium. It's not low because, you know, you never know what other drivers are doing, pedestrians and all that stuff. So you do have to be a bit awake, a bit on board. But yeah, there you go. And there is also somewhere a little bit lower on that where it's like relaxation. Potentially maybe a screenwriter or a fiction writer might be here, where because like what you're doing is creative and it's something you love and there's not a time frame set on it, you can just sit in your own time, maybe in your own space. You're just letting it all flow onto your page. You're probably quite relaxed in that space and you're getting stuff done and it doesn't feel too stressful, all that stuff. So that's another one. I'll go around the graph clockwise. Obviously then the next is your boredom, which I've been through already, where you're not really having to apply yourself. You don't need to apply yourself. It's sort of like if you've got like a V8 engine, a massive like drag racer, and you're just going to put them down to the shops. It's almost like a waste of resources in that way. So that's why you're like sort of bored. As humans, as people, our brains like to solve problems, like to figure things out. And when there's nothing to figure out, you're sort of like, you know, at the end of your tether, you're like, oh, okay, fuck, what do I do next? That's sort of like boredom and then moving into sort of apathy as well, where you can get to a point where you just don't care about something. If it's not engaging enough, if it's not stimulating enough in the ways that you want it to either, you're just not going to care about it. But then if the skill set isn't there, the challenge starts going up, you start to worry. If it goes even higher, you sort of get to anxiety, you start feeling like worried about it. But it does also come back to flow, because if the challenge level is very, very high, but your skill set is not matching it in terms of being high, but sort of medium, you're probably hitting like an arousal state. And that doesn't just mean sex. It can mean that, but it also means as in like you're interested, you're curious, you want to engage in it. You wanna see where this will go and that sort of stuff, which then obviously leads us to when the skill set and the challenge level match is like pure flow state. So there are these two graphs I'm talking about. How to find what you want to do in your life is the first question that I proposed in this video. You want to find something that you feel like aroused in, controlled in, relaxed in. Find something that naturally lines up with you. I know many, many people who work jobs, considerable amount of hours, considerable amount of time and energy, but it's not actually what they want to do, right? You might be very successful in it, and we'll get to this whole part in a second, but because it's not what they want to do, they don't get the same fulfillment from it as someone else, right? Let's say like reservations managing and that sort of stuff. Let's be honest, that's probably not what excited you as a kid, but it fits, you know, you're all right at your job, that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, it pays the bills, whatever, which is fine, but this is not what's going to drive you in life. You're never going to wake up one day and be like, wow, I really can't wait to code this for this massive corporation, or I can't wait to take reservations for this restaurant, or do you know what I mean, right? As an opposite side to that is that you can find something that is on the other side of the graph, which is tough for you, it's hard for you. It might be a new skill, like let's say being a chef, right? You've never been a chef before, but you love food. Probably like looks kind of tough, right? There's a lot of high demand, very, very small margin for error. You have to work alongside a team as well, so you can't be too selfish. But over time, as you raise your skill level, you will like place differently on that graph over time. So it's not like you have to just be the only thing that makes you flow state, because also the days change, the seasons change. You might wake up one day doing what you love, and you might not absolutely love it like you did the day before. It doesn't mean you hate it and you should change jobs. It just means it's one of them days where you have to look after yourself and sort of pick yourself back up and that sort of stuff. Which brings me to how to stick to the things that you want to do, or the things that you love and whatever. And that is having to look internally about where you fit on that graph in that moment in time, and knowing yourself enough to be able to move yourself around. For example, if I'm bored as heck at my job, find some stuff to do. Keep myself busy, keep myself entertained. You know, why not ask questions that I'm not sure about? There's nothing wrong with going above and beyond like the Call of Duty, because one, it will look good from the professional sense, but also you actually will have a better day. I don't know if you guys have ever been on these like sort of shifts, no matter what we're talking about, where there's just nothing to do. I don't care what the occupation is, they're boring as hell. They're the worst shifts to go through. Especially from a hospitality point of view, the best shifts to get is when there's always something to do. There's always something to react to, something to look after, something to reset, maintain, push out, etc., etc. Right, and then like if you're worried about something, why are you worried about it? Like the graph would state, because your skill level's not high enough. Okay, well, what can I focus on now in the moment, or within the next time period, or a few weeks or a few months, whatever, so I can raise my skill level so I'm not worried about these things. or I'm not feeling anxious, or I'm not caring about it in a means to sort of deflect any accountability. Because at the end of the day, yes, the graph exists, and yes, okay, how you see whatever subject you're studying or whatever thing you're working in or whatever endeavor you're trying to achieve, you might say, oh, I fit there. But you as a person, you're not rigid. You are a 3D human being capable of very complex emotions and very complex chains of thought. And maybe just not giving yourself enough credit to control yourself, or to guide yourself is probably a better term. I don't want to say control, to guide yourself. A lot of people talk about self-love, and some people think it's a bit too hippie to talk about that stuff, but that to me is self-love. Being able to guide yourself towards the inner mindset that you want, that will help you create externally. Okay? And things like this can be very simple. It can be waking up and doing some exercise. That forces you to sort of feel a bit like aroused, or, your blood's pumping, you start becoming a bit more alert, aware, a bit more focused, You can do things like the cold showers and the no coffee in the morning, or coffee in the morning, or whatever. All of these things that you do will alter how you see the world, or how you're feeling. How you're feeling will then alter your productivity, like what you're doing. If I've had an awful day, if I've had terrible news and I have to go to work, I'm not going to be focused on it at all. I'm gonna do very badly. So it's about in the moments. Yeah, okay, you still have to go to work because you're a functioning adult. Well done. Also, no one gives enough pats on the back. Well done for being a functional adult. But yeah, so like, say the days I've had some awful news. Okay, I could either sort of ignore it for a minute whilst I'm at work and try and go back to arousal and be like, okay, right, what can I do in this now? What can I do to distract myself? Or I can take it a lot more relaxed and be like, okay, it's going to be a tough day. It might even be a tough week because of whatever news I've heard. Let me just hit that lower bar, bring the challenge level down lower, and move from the sort of worry or apathy or boredom into relaxation and control, right? The idea is, no matter where you are on the graph, whatever you want to call it, the idea is to slowly bring yourself section by section into the flow state as best as you can. I think the top 4 from arousal to relaxation is probably where you want to be majority of your day. You can't help now, and that's what I'm saying at the start, like, you can't help if you are worried about something. Cannot help that. But you can help it in the future, and you can use that message, the emotion that you're feeling, to sort of guide you towards your steps in the near future, so you feel less worry overall. I know for a fact you guys have got this. You always friggin' do. I appreciate all the love I've been getting. I'm going to be visiting the city for a couple of days, so I'm going to try and get some more editing done whilst I'm on the train and stuff. But as always, you lovely people, keep pushing what you want to do, keep achieving what you want to achieve, as life is built for you. And you are building your life. Have a good one. Peace out. Love.